Welcome to another exciting episode of the Insurance Untangled Podcast. My name is Ben Tuine, and I have my insurance panelist and co-host Tessin with me. Tessin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for being with us again today to talk about an important topic. We've chosen for this episode to talk about usual and customary fee trends and how setting your fees impacts your reimbursements. So there's a short-term effect on fees and there's a long-term effect on fees. You know, the funny thing is, Tessin, I was in Alaska earlier this week.
Wow.
You know what the Fair Health 80th percentile is for a 2740 Crown in Anchorage?
I don't. What is it?
You want to take a guess?
I don't know. Is it high or low?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you the answer, but what would you think? Knowing what you know about Alaska, what would you say? It's a relatively lower income communities.
Okay. I would say 1,300.
Okay. Close, but not close enough.
Okay.
It's 1,750.
No way.
Yeah. And I was up there and I did the demographic research. I'm like, holy smokes, the cost of living here is so much less expensive than most parts of the country. But it's cold. Like 90% of the time it's cold, right?
Yeah.
So living there, of course, people say they move up there to get away from people, but there's still a lot of people in Anchorage. I was surprised that was the usual and customary fees according to Fair Health. And then when I looked at the average allowed amount for the same crown, you want to take a guess where it's at in Anchorage? Average in-network allowance.
1,200.
Yes, it was at 1,300.
I can guess that knowing where they're at. Knowing the 17, I can guess they're at 1,200.
You did it. That was an excellent guess. Spot on. So what does this tell us in terms of fees? Like when you look at the Anchorage demographics, cost of living, the wages that they pay people there, arguably, there are a lot of parts of the community that share the exact same demographics, but their 80th percentile of fees, according to Anchorage, most other places would be at 950 in their crown or 1,050, right? So this kind of brings up the big question: how do fees, like doctor fees, which is the official title that I hope everybody starts using moving forward, is usual and customary fees, UCF. So UCF is in reference to office fees for the practice. UCR, usual and customary rates, or usual, customary, and reasonable, that's in reference to the insurance fees, right? So that's the definition that they took. Whether they hijacked it or not, I don't know. But when it comes to how UCF influences allowables, UCR, what is your take on how that plays out over time, like over decades, in terms of setting fees? How does that impact insurance reimbursements?
Yeah, it impacts everything. It's everything to do with it. The insurance companies are looking at what the providers are saying their cost is, and then they're saying that they are reducing your cost by 30 to 50% as a marketing fee, that they want to market for you to bring you these patients. I'm sorry, but at a 50% discount, please don't market for me. I don't want you to market for me. That's okay.
I'll give you a 10% deal. Yeah, and I'll do my own marketing.
I'll do my own marketing. And so this is what fee-for-services offices are learning, is that you can do your own marketing and you can set your own fees. And you don't have to pay some company 50% of your fees to do marketing for you. That's no business model anywhere says that you have to pay 50% of marketing. We had this problem a long time ago. I think it's getting better now, but I am still coming across it, where doctors were submitting the contracted fee. And this was a huge nightmare and has put us back in years and years in reimbursements. This is why it's been so many years since a lot of offices and a lot of cities and a lot of states haven't had increases, because for so many years they were billing that contracted fee. I feel like in the last 5 or 10 years, we've been making really big pushes for offices to learn not to do that and to bill their office fee. So it has gotten better, but then what fee were they billing? So then we find, they're not billing the right amount. They're nervous about, they don't know how much to bill. I'm sorry, doctors, I love you, but they didn't go to business school. They don't know how to price out everything, and they're not really sure where to start. So unless they have an MBA working with them, or an accountant that helps them set their fees, that's a part of the struggle. And the sweet part in doctors is a lot of them, they are just wanting to do this out of the goodness of their heart. And so they feel guilty about charging too much because they're afraid that people can't afford it. So there's all these factors that have played into these low office fees. And then they're frustrated and not understanding why the insurance company isn't reimbursing them better. And I have to tell them it's because you're not charging the correct fee. If you're charging the correct fee, then you'll be able to get a good reimbursement rate. And again, when the insurance company is saying that they're setting fees based on your zip code, and they're setting them based on what they're seeing the doctors around you bill. So if all the doctors around you are all billing that contracted fee or that low fee, then again, you're setting a precedent for your area. As now we're teaching these doctors what the proper fees are that they should be charging. Again, we're starting to see some of those fees come up. And as they come up in more and more doctors and more cities and states, then the whole area benefits from it, because they're seeing that it's not just this one doctor that's charging this amount, it's the whole area. So a lot of education needs to go around still on proper UCR fees.
Absolutely. I think here in Utah, we have direct evidence on how that plays out. So I started working with doctors here in Utah around 2009, and the percentiles in terms of crowns, like what doctors charged, the 80th percentile for a crown in Salt Lake City was barely $900, And so now when we look at it, the data, a lot of practices these days are charging well over $1,000 for crowns. Our cost of living here in Utah is almost identical to that of Los Angeles in terms of housing, wages.
Yeah, it's gone up so much.
But our reimbursements are behind. They're not too far behind Los Angeles, but they're still behind. But over the last 10 years, in terms of movement of fees, usual and customary fees that have impacted what the insurance allowances are, we've seen a direct impact on, as we've been doing more education, having doctors set their fees to the appropriate level. Yes. There's been a direct impact on negotiated rates increasing significantly compared to other states. Why do you think that is? I guess two-part question. Why have the percentiles shot up here more than other states? And also, what is the right percentile to set your fees at as a doctor? What say you?
The percentiles have been jumping because the doctors have been learning the appropriate fees to be charging. As they're charging that and they're getting the experience and understanding, there's been a lot of education in Utah specifically because all these Utah doctors have been realizing that they are far under what all the other states are under. And so they've been asking this question, why? Why are we stuck down here? Why are our fees not as high? What do we need to do? So they have been reaching out and requesting help, requesting consultants or reports, whatever it is that the study clubs, right? All these things that they're going and learning that where their fees need to be. And a lot of people have been moving to raising that. I've seen it, you've seen it. And that naturally is increasing, for everybody now. And then what was the second question?
What's your recommendation on where fees should be set?
Yes. Okay, so where should those fees be? So your fees should be in the 80th or 90th percentile in order for you to get a good, decent, not even like this is such a fantastic, high reimbursement fee, just to get a reasonable reimbursement rate. Then your fees need to be in the 80th or 90th percentile. Remember what I said earlier is that the insurance company, most of them on average, I feel like are about 30% write-off, which is already too high if you ask me. But there's still several that are putting their mark at a 50% write-off. So you have to have your fees, and some people feel uncomfortable about this, like saying I have to inflate my fees, and then the insurance puts them back down, and then Like, why can't I just put my fee at what I want to put it at? You can, but again, this is the game that the insurance wants to play. And if we want the good reimbursement rates and we want to be a network, you can be frustrated all you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to raise your fees. And are the fees that unreasonable? Has anybody checked to see, again, what the lab costs are? Some of the doctors I have talked to didn't actually know what their lab fees were, or hadn't taken into account, again, all of the overhead, including the electricity, the gas, all of the wages for all of the employees. So you're sometimes considering like, oh, it takes me this much time, this much materials in this room. You have a whole office running at that time, right? Whether it takes you an hour to do a crown or 2 hours to do a crown. So let's put all those numbers together. How much you're spending in supplies, which has gone up a lot. This is another reason in Utah that they had to start raising fees. The inflation went crazy, crazy high. So they had to do something. People are starting to increase their fees just because we can't do crowns for the amount we used to, because our cost has gone up by 50%. That has gone up by 50%.
Yeah.
It's doubled, I can tell you. So really putting all those numbers together, and you're saying, if I say to change your crown fee to $1,350, and you're like, that's too high, is it? Like, is it really though? Like, I don't think you've looked at your numbers. And a lot of times when we look at the numbers, it's not too high of a fee for them to be charging. We do tell the offices that they can still give a discount to some of their cash pay patients if they're really feeling that they need to do that. But honestly, that $1,350 is not that unreasonable for our costs right now.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. I think one great mechanism to consider is that if you're concerned about fees, build a membership plan, have that sort of take over and govern the fee perception for the patients. So we do see this quite a bit, where some practices do charge $1,300, but they'll give their uninsured patients under the membership plan a 10 to 20% discount, right? To minimize, at least lower the impact, but also from a perception standpoint, right? People want deals. We all do. We all shop around. I mean, even practice owners shop around all the time.
Yeah.
And when people feel like they're getting a decent deal, it eliminates, or at least minimizes, the shopping, right? The temptation to shop. So,
and I love a good discount plan, because the patients don't go in when they don't have insurance. They'll only go in when something hurts and they try to get it fixed. I love a good discount plan, or membership plan, whatever you want to call it, because it gets those patients coming every 6 months and we can provide much better care to them.
Absolutely. I totally agree. As most of you know, in past episodes, Jordan Comstock from BoomCloud was a guest host. Check his stuff out too. Like, go to boomcloudapps.com. Their membership plan platform is actually quite amazing. The clients that we work with that use any membership plan see a pretty big difference in terms of people enrolling. But also that helps with increased case acceptance, because a lot of people don't want to pay full fee, right? So think about that. Use that to your advantage if you're having a struggle on raising fees and being concerned about the uninsured patients protesting. So what about, Tessina, when a patient leaves their insurance plan? Let's say they retire out of their dental plan, and it's a now patient that's Medicare eligible, right? What would you recommend to those patients? Let's say they had Delta at a 40, well, here in Utah, it's a 47% write-off, 52% for a lot of practices. What would be your recommendation for that patient when they come to you and ask, what should I switch to in terms of dental insurance?
I kind of go back to those membership plans. I really love that, offering them an in-office membership plan, because again, we can recommend, and I do also carry a list of really good companies that I've worked with that I know that value the quality of care that we like to provide, and don't shortchange my patient with saying things are covered and then they have so many exclusions and nothing's really covered. So I look for those two factors if I were to recommend, and we have a list of those at our office that we like to give out. But aside from that, I'm going to be sending them to into a plan where they're paying this really high premium, sometimes they don't need it, especially if they've been coming to me every 6 months for the last 20 years and now they're retired. They maybe only just need their every 6 month cleanings with some occasional work. A membership plan will work fantastic for that. And it's not going to have all those exclusions and limitations because now we don't have to be dictated by an insurance company.
Mm-hmm. What if some people say, well, we already have a lot of uninsured patients that are active. Like, is a membership plan really going to help me? Like, what are some of your thoughts there for those people that are thinking that?
I say yes, 100%. A membership plan is going to be fantastic. And even those patients that are already uninsured and they're coming, they will come more, they will accept more treatment, they will refer their friends. So when they run into other people that say, where do you go? I don't have insurance. They're going to say, oh my gosh, my doctor has a membership plan. You should go see him.
Mm-hmm. I saw one of the dental magazines published an article about the differences between uninsured patients that are just simply uninsured compared to an uninsured patient that has a subscription with a membership plan. And they concluded, based upon the data, that same group of patients that are now on the membership plans, they do 3 to 5 times more dentistry compared to not having insurance altogether. Mm-hmm. So how this ties into fees is that if you influence a lot of your insured and uninsured patients to switch, or at least to enroll with a membership plan, you get to control those fees. Yes. It's a plan design that you're in charge of, So big time in terms of success for most practices that do implement that. Okay, so final question here, Tessina, regarding usual and customary fee trends. So you recommend the 80th percentile. Any specific websites or databases that you recommend where doctors can go?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got the NDA, which is the National Dental Advisory. Is that what it is? Dental or dentist? Now I've just been calling it NDA so long. I don't know. Yeah. National Dental Advisory. They have a list of fees. But you can get a copy from your reps sometimes, Henry Schein or Patterson. If you sign up with a company that does fee negotiations or some admin coachings, a lot of times they'll have access to that as well. I know Veritas does, right? And so you can reach out to those people, but fairhealthconsumer.org is a favorite of mine as well. So fairhealthconsumer.org, it's a free service, but it is limited searches. So you really want to spot check a few codes here and there and just leave it at that. If you do more than like 20, I think it's probably 20 codes, 25 codes, then it'll flag you as like a business and it'll ask you to do subscription, which isn't the worst thing. You can sign up for that as well if you'd like. But I really like the Fair Health Consumer because it gives you what the cash pay price is and also kind of what the average reimbursement rate is that they're seeing. And this is where I go when my doctors are like, I can't charge that fee. The new doctors, a new client, when I explain to them where their fees need to be positioned and they say, I can't do that. Nobody in my area is doing that. And my patients will just go somewhere else. So we can just go to the fairhealthconsumer.org right then and there together and pull up their zip code and their that one procedure code and show them what the cash pay price is, the cash pay price for that code. And they're always shocked. They're always amazed. They had no idea that that's what everybody was charging. And they thought, that they were in an okay spot. And then they realized, oh, I'm way off. I do need to raise this. And it's okay to raise it because this is the going rate. So I love seeing that. We are starting to see that more acceptance of what the appropriate fee should be.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. We will, for our listeners, we will have a limited amount of NDAS fee percentiles that we can give you. So if you're interested, get a hold of us, be on top of the queue. We can only do so many of those.
Yes.
But we are going to try to accommodate as many of the listeners that are just curious to see what your percentiles are. Just go to the show notes, grab our email. You could just email help@veritasdentalresources.com. Make sure you mention that you heard this on the podcast so that we know not to charge you. But we can most certainly produce the NDAS fee percentiles to a certain number of listeners that reach out to us. So if that's of interest, let us know. We'd be happy to accommodate on that for you. Any closing thoughts, Tessina, as we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
Well, that's perfect. I think you did a great job giving your take on usual and customary fees. And to our listeners, we just want to thank you again for joining us on another episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. Always great to have Tessa with us to share her knowledge and to make our conversations very much interesting and applicable to those of you that are in the grind of dealing with insurance on a daily basis. So if you like this episode, just share it. Like us on whatever podcast platform that you have. Give us a review. That'll help other doctors find our content as well. If you have any questions or topic suggestions, get a hold of us through either insuranceentangled.com, or you could just send us an email at help, at least to us directly, help@veritasdentalresources.com. And we'd love to get your feedback and your suggestions on future topics. Until we meet again, we wish all of you a wonderful day and the very best of success. Take care.